The editors at Mergers and Acquisitions, the podcast for the Society of Economic Anthropology. Since the launch of Mergers and Acquisitions, we've been able to compile an array of really fascinating conversations about economic anthropology across multiple contexts, from capitalism in the digital age to unemployment and climate change. And we're very excited to be launching a new series of podcast conversations in the coming year. But before we get those out, during the Society of Economic Anthropology's annual conference this year in Copenhagen, I'm going to be doing a range of recorded conversations with economic anthropologists on the ground at the conference about what economic anthropology means to them and how they use the concepts of our subdiscipline in their daily research. And so here I am with one of this year's conference organizers, Dan Souleles. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Aneil.
Thank you for being with me today. Currently, we're actually not in Copenhagen yet. We are in Dan's new field site, the State Capitol building in Massachusetts. And Dan, I think your research has always been fascinating to me. Your first project was on private equity and looking at how value is understood amongst these folks that are buying and selling companies. And now you've come here to the Capitol building in Massachusetts to understand what makes a bill and how does legislation happen. How has being an economic anthropologist brought you into these research projects? Where do you see some of the concepts of economic anthropology play out in your day-to-day research?
Well, the way I think about economic anthropology is, I'll start with a negative definition. I think often when you look at economic anthropology, it looks like one of two things. It's either a list of topics that aren't connected by any sort of a theoretical coherency, or it's a critique of disciplinary economics, particularly marginalist disciplinary economics. And both of those are sort of like critical and reactionary. And I think there's a lot of good work that falls along those lines, but when I think about economic anthropology, I'm kind of mindful of that, and I want to try and articulate some sort of a positive theoretical outlook. And so for me, it kind of follows in the stream of like David Graeber's value theory stuff, which is like groups of people find stuff important, and then we have all of these theories about how value, worth becomes instantiated in wealth and physical things and in people, and then how those things circulate and move around. So for me, what economic anthropology offers is this sort of, this theory, this body of theory that comes out of American cultural anthropology, and then sort of the French social theory legacy of Durkheim and Mauss to get these sort of social theories, and you kind of put it together and you get economic anthropology, where it's like value and ascriptions of worth and wealth, and then how they move around in the social world. So when I come to the legislature, what I'm really curious about is, very pragmatically, how and why laws and bills get passed. And the way I answer that question is I try and understand the legislative process from the point of view of the people who are involved in it. So senators, reps, lobbyists, staffers, journalists, people who have active participatory stakes in the legislative process. I want to understand what they think they're doing and then how it all comes together in a social process. So again, it's this sort of like culturally value-y thing, and then you kind of put it in motion via a legislative process, a deliberative process. So in that way, it's very similar to what I was doing with the finance people. And that sort of core theoretical leap comes, at least from my own understanding of what economic anthropology is. I don't know, that do the trick?
Oh, that's perfect. Thanks so much, Dan. So that's our first on-the-ground conversation with economic anthropologists in the field and at our annual conference coming up in a few weeks over in Copenhagen.
So the conference starts now, is what you're saying?
It's starting right now.
I'm on the clock.
On the clock already. All right. Get ready to tune in for more recordings coming up, y'all. Take care.